Hello, this is Lee back again for another review. Shimmer Volume 50. Here we go. This is the second half of that Saturday, the October 27th, 2012 Shimmer tapings. Anyway, I had mentioned in my previous review about a little bit of a fan unpleasantness. A couple of fans left the event after they were kind of hassled by the staff for recording when they shouldn't have been recording, even though they erased it and they could stay, but there were some bad feelings, and that hurt a little bit in the end of the evening. But once that went away, I think maybe I was distracted from half of a match because of that, but otherwise the live experience was very good. This was a very good show. I'm sure they were exhausted by the end of it. Of course, this is just the second half of Saturday. But anyway, you can see this wonderful artwork. Trying to get stylish there with the artwork and the designs. There's a yellow case. There we go. Some more designs. Yep. So, of course, Courtney Rush with her. This woman loves to talk. There's a podcast of her called Rush Hour, where she kind of jokes around with her friends, other fellow wrestlers. She's good friends with Cat Power, who hasn't been seen in Shimmer in a while, I believe. There you can see, of course, Tomoka Nakagawa and Athena on the disc there. And let's see, I forget who's underneath the spine. Underneath the spindle, I should say. Remove the disc. Sometimes they're harder to remove, which is why I go with the push button. Of course, we have the Marvin the Martian outfit from Leva Bates. They did kind of a Bugs Bunny cartoon setup with a cosplaying Action Regeneration X, Alice in Danger, Leva Bates. Anyway, so 50, we move on, starting with Veda Scott and Miss Natural. Now, Miss Natural, of course, the bully. I may have been distracted from this match at the time. I don't remember much about it. I may have to go over it again and do a second part while I give some more thoughts. It's not as fresh in my mind as some of these matches. Miss Natural always does a good job, but essentially she is just a mean-spirited, egotistical person. She just is not nice. She's very bulky with powerful muscles, and of course Veda Scott is hapless, young person, very inexperienced. As she takes her glasses off and she comes to the ring, that's the character she plays. So it's almost the classic schoolyard bully thing. But Miss Natural is entertaining to watch. She's just not placed high on the card. But someone has to start the show. Someone has to start the show, and I'm sure they did their best. So there you go. Not a super 5-star match, but just fine. Shazza McKenzie versus Santana. Santana Garrett, of course, who became Brittany in TNA briefly. I didn't like the way she was used in that promotion. She mostly did backstage stuff. She was not as active a wrestler as she should have been with her abilities. But oh well. The two of them, of course, Shazza, the less experienced wrestler in the story. So of course we thought, oh, of course she's going to lose to Santana, but she's going to do her best. Another okay match. I wasn't super invested, to be honest. Sue Young versus Sassy Steffi. Now Sue Young apparently has gone through many gimmicks. She started out almost like an Indian dancer. Then she became kind of a hyper, almost like a skateboarder kid, skater girl kind of thing. And then I think now she's more of like a kind of a vampire of some sort. So I'm not really sure if she's having trouble like settling on a good gimmick, or if she just likes to try different things. So I don't know, but I hope she finds something that she likes. Perfectly fine wrestler, but just not. She just hasn't found her niche yet, I guess. I think I saw her on Sparkle initially. Sue Young. Sassy versus Sassy Steffi. So Sassy Steffi, the seasoned wrestler, the mean-spirited cheater, versus Su Yung, the newbie, and of course, what's going to happen? So this was kind of like almost like an initiation, if you will, a brutal initiation, if you will. Su Yung needs to pay her dues, so she's going to go against someone like Sassy Steffi to soften her up. Courtney Rush versus Taylor Made. Courtney Rush, of course, in her comedic run, very goofy, very endearing to the fans, very hyper energy. And Taylor Made, the fans like to call her Trailer Made, kind of insulting her. And it's just kind of a funny match. Courtney Rush, of course, mocking Taylor Made. So there you go. The bullies get a taste of their own medicine from a plucky rising star. There you go. Calamity versus Christina Von Eerie versus Ryo Mizunami versus Cherry Bomb. There you go. I would say Calamity, Christina Von Eerie, good wrestlers. Ryo Mizunami, very brief stint in Shimmer, but impressive. And Cherry Bomb, not a huge fan. She would become much more well-known later on, but at this time she just kind of came across. I think she started out as a good guy. She became more twisted and evil very quickly, and then she teamed up with Kimber Lee and became, the Kimber Bombs, and eventually they would have a title run. So there you go. But initially, she just kind of had a unique look, and she and Taylor Hendricks of TNA briefly, the two of them are related, but apparently they haven't wrestled together. It just hasn't worked out. They have just different career paths. They're just passing in the night, so to speak. But they have kind of a similar look, the facial features, and so forth. This one match was okay. Each of the wrestlers got to kind of show off some of their talents with these bigger group matches that happens. It's kind of it's like a showcase. It's like, I'm going to come in and do something impressive. And then when I get my turn, I'm going to do this. And it's just kind of like that. So, it's alright. It serves that purpose. Davina Rose versus Rhea O'Reilly. Now, once again, Rhea, I enjoy her, and poor Davina Rose. But at least for another time, she is up against someone that she has a chance against. It's not a foregone conclusion that she's going to be destroyed. Of course, Rhea O'Reilly, not a clean fighter, and allied with Saraya Knight, so you can imagine what's going to happen. But nevertheless, Davina Rose getting a little more credit as time goes on. And I believe at this show there was a fan who was giving out flowers, fake flowers, and I kept thinking to myself, he needs to give a rose to Davina Rose. Give a rose to Davina Rose, of course. And I never saw it happen. But later, long after the matches were over, and everything was in the can, as they say, recorded, I saw a picture of Davina Rose holding up a flower, so she finally got one, so I'm glad of that. That was perfect. So kudos to that fan and his mad idea of buying a bunch of fake flowers to bring to a women's wrestling match and give them out comedically. So anyway, there you go. And actually, in the Japanese women's wrestling matches, this often happens before a big match. The four wrestlers will be out in a tag team, all looking tough and tough as nails, and then they'll be handed a big bouquet of flowers. It's like, oh, that's nice. And then they just kind of hand it off to the person. It's like, okay, now we're gonna have this huge fight. So you have the traditional femininity, manners and protocol mixed with the the barbarity of combat sport. So it's just kind of a funny combination, I suppose. Hiroya Matsumoto versus Melanie Cruz. This quite entertaining. Hiroya Matsumoto, of course, from Japan. Japan, calling herself the Lady Destroyer. So does that mean she's a lady who destroys things? Or is she one who destroys ladies? I suppose it can be taken either way. But anyway, Melanie Cruz, like a big monster, so it's like a King Kong versus Godzilla, because Royo Matsumoto is not a small woman herself. She's very tall, muscular, but Melanie Cruz is the tallest. And the two of them have this fight, and I believe there's a kind of a comedic moment between them where Royo Matsumoto almost looks like she's going to cry. She's like, they do the thing where they run and this is that back and forth, that competition thing I've been talking about. You know, you have the test of strength, you have the slapping test where they slap each other, and then there's the one where one bounces off the ropes and the other bounces off and they collide shoulder to shoulder to see who can knock the other down. And they do that, and they keep doing it, and they keep doing it, and Hiroyo starts to get frustrated, like, you know, no, it's your turn, go. And she's like, no, you go, no, you go, no, you go. No. It's very silly. But I think that was this match, this happened. I'll review it and make some more comments. But anyway, always Hiroyo. Funny, and yet powerful, believable as a fighter, and yet entertaining no matter what. Kind of a crazy character, similar to Lufisto, but with some different manners. I suppose it's the case of, you know she's going to say something silly at some point. You just have to find out when it is, when it's going to happen. Athena versus Tomoka Nakagawa. Good match. Of course, Tomoka, both a devious cheater and also a talented wrestler in her own right. Athena, of course, still on the road to becoming, you know, the great champion that she wants to be. I'm going to have to review this match to see if there were any parts. I had commented earlier saying that maybe Athena had a kind of an off night. Has she risen above that this time? Well, we'll see. But generally, overall, Athena, great wrestler. It's hard to know who to root for, but generally I'd go with Tomoka. It's hard to pass on someone like that. Yumi Oka versus Kelly Skater. Once again, Kelly Skater getting all the Joshi fights, really seeking to prove herself, to go from the laughingstock, the open challenge issuer, the protein shake drinker. Of course, the joke was that it was Ruroids, it was marsupial growth hormones that she was drinking, and she was becoming super strong with the Incredible Hulk. She was cheating with, vitamin supplements. Well, she's now graduating, because she went to Japan, actually, for real, to train. And she came back with that experience, and in her character, showing off that, hey, I am a capable wrestler. You can actually believe that I have muscles so huge it makes the Incredible Hulk green with envy. I don't take that personally. But anyway, so I think a good match, and Kelly Skater has improved. She's been hiding her skill up to this point. She's now revealing it. But I think she genuinely has improved by this point, and was already an entertaining wrestler, but is becoming more and more, main event material, as they say. Her outfits becoming more skimpy. I think part of that was to show off her musculature, because she started out, actually, if you watch her very early matches, very slender. And I think that was one of the jokes they said growing up, is that she talked about herself being a tank. It was silly, a silly thing to say, because she was so small. When she would get into little spats with her friends, like, I'm a tank. What? That's silly. But her character, of course, is always talking about lifting weights and exercising, and it looks like she did a lot of that, and has become, bigger. But generally, Shimmer does not go for the sex appeal. You don't see wrestlers with very skimpy outfits. There's a few wrestlers that maybe they already wear more revealing clothing, but it is not like on television, especially during the Attitude Era, where women wrestlers were much more judged on their looks and not their wrestling abilities. And of course, certain clothing allows them to do moves that they couldn't do if they were worried about wardrobe malfunctions and so forth. I'm not leveling that as a criticism of Kelly Skater specifically, but it is just noticing a change in her attire. She doesn't stick with this. I think her look, her outfits improve. Some wrestlers started with very not very good-looking costumes, but they've gotten better costumes over time. Now, generally, overall, I could do a whole video on Shimmer outfits, but generally, I appreciate the variety, the style of the Shimmer wrestlers and their outfits, and it's not all just to get people to ogle them, but to show off their physique, but in a way that emphasizes the fact that they are athletes. They're not models at a beauty contest, so to speak. Moving on. The co-main event. It was so big, they couldn't just do one. They called this the co-main event. Ayako Hamada versus Kana. Nothing more needs to be said. I've already said so much about Kana and about Hamada. The two of them together in the co-main event. There you go. Live, perfect. Joshi versus Joshi. Okay. Well, and then the other main event, Cheerleader Melissa and Mischief, and Alice in Danger, and Leva Bates, and Lufisto, the good guy team. Notice Cheerleader Melissa is on the good guy team. So if you were confused earlier, is she bad, is she good? She's on the good guy team. Versus Saraya Knight, Mercedes Martinez, Portia Perez, Nicole Matthews, and Lexi Fife. The bad girls. The bad girl team. The heel team. And also, I believe, now Lexi Fife, she was one of these wrestlers from the early days of Shimmer. More of an older woman compared to the others. Not a great beauty, but a bulky, muscular woman. And she actually was gone for a significant amount of time. She came back, and she would team, well, in the early days, she would team with Malaya Hosaka, who I believe was in WCW. Malaya Hosaka was not actually there, but Lexi Fife had a stick with a cartoon character on the end, kind of a cardboard cutout of Malaya Hosaka as another member of the team. It was a joke. And actually, this joke had been repeated in the past. Malaya Hosaka would come out by herself and would have a stick of Lexi Fife. So it would be Malaya Hosaka and Lexi Fife on a stick, as if it were a team. It was very silly. And so they would do like fake tags. And I think there was one point in this match that was very silly. Malaya Hosaka was ejected from the match by the referee, and they would pretend like she was, struggling to be, against the referee as he was ejecting her from the building. And of course her catchphrase was "Shut up!" She would always say "Shut up, shut up!" at the fans, at the officials, everything. Very, very funny. But Malaya Hosaka and Lexi Fife had a tag team called The Experience, and I'll talk more about them when I get to those volumes, time permitting. And The Experience, they were older, more seasoned wrestlers, and they didn't take the young wrestlers seriously. They would cheat because they knew how, and they felt always disrespected. They were curmudgeony, as much as can be expected, but also very good because obviously they did have the skills. Lexi Fife, she ran a website where they film custom matches, and this may be a bit of a rant for another video, but these are matches that are filmed in an empty arena, pretty much. And I think these matches completely fail my level of entertainment, because one of the main points of professional wrestling is the illusion that it is a real competition. And just as you wouldn't have a play with no audience, having a wrestling match with no audience is ridiculous. It's silly, it's awkward, it's strange, it's bizarre, it just doesn't... But for whatever reason, leave that to you. This website is not the only one of its kind, but many of the Shimmer performers have appeared in these matches. And they're very overpriced, I would say. I haven't watched any of them, but from the little clips and pictures I've seen, it looks very silly. But anyway, each to their own, I suppose. Now, just talking about that, someone might say, well, what about films? What about movies? I mean, those are filmed on a set. There's no live studio audience when you make a movie. That's true, but I would say a movie is made to be seen by an audience like that. It would be like filming a play that is meant to be seen in a theater, but there's no audience whatsoever, and the performers are telling jokes to the audience, and no one's laughing, and they're supposed to take that and go with it. It's very strange because wrestling, I feel, they draw energy from the crowd. If the crowd is really eating it up, that actually affects the way the pace of the match. If the audience is bored, the wrestlers have to step up their game. They won't just go through their paces mechanically as if nothing is going on. No, they will be affected. If the crowd is really fired up, they may stay in that position they're in for just a little while longer, just to milk that excitement from the crowd. If things are boring, the crowd is not engaged, they may move on to other things. But with no audience, it's much more scripted, much more mechanical. Now, of course, we are watching these matches not in a live form, but in a digital versatile disc. But it's nevertheless, I think it's very important that this is recorded in front of a crowd of real fans. Yes, some of the members of the audience are plants and shills. They are wrestlers that are hired to interact, usually to get punched in the face by Sweet Saraya or whatever. But most of the fans there are there because they want to be. They paid to see a wrestling match. They're willing to suspend disbelief. And they create at least a third to a half of the show because they interact with the wrestlers. They bring out the best in them. Now, it would take a talented wrestler, I think, to wrestle a match with no audience. But I think having an audience, it's harder to wrestle in front of an audience because they will make, cat calls and trash talk, and they'll make jokes, and they'll react to what you do. And you can't lose your cool. You have to go along with it. So I think a true performer could do both, but it's much more challenging to perform in front of an audience and to do it well and not get psyched out by what's happening. Because the fans may not like you, or they may love you, one way or another. So, overall, I would say this group match, this was kind of, if you will, the Volume 50 tribute, where they have someone from the past, all the heels versus all the baby faces in this battle. It was a good match. With a match that large with so many wrestlers, it's hard to give everyone a chance to do what they do, but it was just fun to see. So overall, a good volume. I'll probably have more comments to follow up and wrap up, but thank you for watching. It was a great wrestling weekend, to be sure. And I think you'll enjoy the DVD.